Hey everyone, this is Norm Farrar, aka the Beard Guy here, and welcome to another Lunch with Norm, the Amazon FBA and e-commerce podcast.
Lunch with Norm. Lunch with Norm. Lunch with
Okay, on today's show, we're going to be talking about a great subject, the shifting Amazon market from being an Amazon brand to actually brand building. Our guest today has a background in finance and a passion in developing economics and e-commerce. He's a former investment banker and the founder of a specialty manufacturing brokerage based in Hong Kong. He went on to acquire Foxborough Naturals with Daniel Moran, who a lot of us know, in 2017 in skincare and sold primarily on Amazon. He looks to continue building consumer brands and better data on and off Amazon. And we're going to be talking to Clement Wan. But before we do that, just wanted to give a big thank you to our sponsor, Global Wired Advisors, a leading digital investment bank focused on optimizing the business sales process. For more information, call Chris and his team over at globalwiredadvisors.com. All right, Mr. Kelsey.
Hello, happy Friday.
I'm glad your face is cleared up from all those scratches and scrapes from your class the other night.
Yes. So those that don't know, I am a practitioner of jiu-jitsu. So we just started up a couple of months or last month. So you might notice I might get a few bruises or scratches from time to time, but don't worry, Norm isn't that bad.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, this is a you've been studying the art for many years, but it's not Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It's more like Kelsey jiu-jitsu, that you only have one opponent. You have to defeat yourself. Like I hate when I walk in the house and you're slapping yourself in the face, or you've got yourself in a chokehold. You know, that's terrible. All right, what are we doing today?
Okay, so smash those like buttons. We've got a great prize. We're actually giving away 2 prizes today. And welcome everyone to the show. I can see we got Rad, Jessica, Mir, Manny. Welcome everyone. What are you guys doing this weekend? What are your plans? Also, what are your thoughts on Q4? Are there any areas where you want to learn more about? Just let us know in the comment sections. Also, we're actually doing our 200th episode, and we call that the Beard Nation Appreciation episode. So if you are interested in coming on to the Lunch with Norm podcast, we've done it before, where we have our Beard Nation on the podcast. So just head on over to our Facebook group. That's Lunch with Norm, Amazon FBA, and eCommerce Collective. And you'll see a post there. And just let us know what your favorite episode was, what's your story, just anything. That all the questions are there if you want to. But basically, if you're interested in coming on Lunch with Norm on, I think, September 29th, just go over to the group and let us know, and we'd be happy to have you on. We're looking for about 5 people. So it was really great meeting the Beard Nation last time, and we're hoping to do that again.
Perfect. Okay, so I guess we should get the thing rolling, right? The episode going. So. You got anything else to say? I'm just curious.
No, I'm good.
Okay. Oh, and by the way, Kelsey was borrowed by another group yesterday, and it was the first time you did. We've exported the Wheel of Kelsey.
Yeah.
So I thought that was
a fun
cool.
experience.
All right,
let's go. We're going global.
We're going global. If you have any questions, comments, please put them over in the comment section. So it's time to sit back, relax, grab your cup of coffee. I have one here. And welcome. All right, Clement. All right, there we go. How are you, sir?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Good. So for those of us who don't know you, can you just give us a bit of your background and what you do?
I guess that's a nebula for a lot of us. The big question that I think many of us can answer is the people who come to the elevator and ask, "Oh, well, what do you do?" And I think so right now, working primarily e-commerce, kind of exploring a few different ideas there. especially with Fox Brim Naturals, as you had mentioned, and also exploring things like quiz funnels and kind of how to build more expert authority around a brand so that it can support growth, especially on marketplaces like Amazon and elsewhere. Now, my background is finance. Grew up in your hometown, I think, Waterloo, and went to college called Laurier for business, and did some investment banking, and then eventually got into e-commerce maybe 2015, 2016.
Yeah, I think we talked about that. So we did grow up in Waterloo. Memories. I didn't go to university in Water. I never went to university. I went to college, but the bomb shelter. I visited that bomb shelter many a night. And is that still around?
I believe so. I
Oh man, we won't get into that. But Waterloo's a great town. A really great Kitchener Waterloo is a great town to grow up in. But let's get on to the subject today. So if you do have questions, please, I think this is going to be a great topic. And what I think the first question is, what's shifted lately? Like what has been shifting in your eyes from Amazon, from growing that micro brand to actually building a brand?
I think it's not been a recent shift. I think it's a long-term shift, and I think I think one of the things that a lot of people miss is Amazon is obviously the best or the biggest search engine for stuff. So we go to Google, and if we look at the evolution of e-commerce or commerce or even the internet in general, you have search engines where the evolution of the search engine itself is that the people who are first on it collect great rewards. And you can go back, both of us are old enough to remember the beginnings of the internet. And well, maybe not the beginnings of the internet, but the commercialization of the internet. And how email, for instance, for digital marketers initially, it used to be really frowned upon to do anything commercial. And then email marketers, or marketers in general, ruin everything. And so all of a sudden you had people making tons of money on email. And then there was Google, the days when ad costs were like a penny or a few pennies for click-through rates. And then as they built a marketplace in ads, things got a lot more costly. And I think that similar evolution is happening in Amazon. What's interesting, I think, is that when it comes to search engines, at least, the model has continually shifted. So initially, there's, I've only kind of heard it framed in this way, but I think it's common where it's an AOV, average order. The focus is on building up an average order value and being profitable on that first sale versus a lifetime value type model where you're trying to increase the profitability and the value that you exchange between the consumer and your brand over time. And I think that is, I'm not sure, because of the nature of Amazon being both a marketplace platform and a search engine, it hopefully won't ever get to the point where selling on Amazon is unprofitable. But what we do see is that it has become a lot more competitive in the very least, and with ad costs increasing, and especially now, all costs kind of increasing across the board for sellers, there's margin compression. And I think we'll continue to see that. And I think my personal view is that what we'll see over time is that Amazon, the best brands will see Amazon as a tool for customer acquisition, and ultimately selling, whether or not people buy on Amazon or on their website or even Walmart, it doesn't really matter. But at the same time, I do think Amazon is the best place to scale a brand, bar none, as long as your products are of a nature that is easily you don't have to sell it, because people come to Amazon to buy, and it's usually impulse buying. And so unfortunately, if you've invented something spectacular, I'm not sure that it would necessarily do well on Amazon.
Right. Yeah. You've got to sell that point. You've got to drive a ton of traffic over to Amazon, because who the heck's going to look for your search term? So it is a tougher sell, right? If you got this incredible invention, it might work on infomercials, but not necessarily on Amazon. But excuse me for a sec. I know I'm going to cough. I apologize. There we go. I even hit the mute button, saving your ears. Amazon is the spot. Like, I think even the term "the rise of the micro brands" probably came from Amazon, because it was so easy. Back in 2013, 14, 15, you threw up anything and you could start selling. But Amazon's even said today, like not today, but recently, it's about the brand, it's about the community. So they're looking for people to build brands and promote brands, and you've got a captivated audience. It's the number one search engine to buy products. Why not take advantage of it? There's a lot of bad things that are being said about Amazon. You got to get around it. You got to have risk evaluation, and you have to have a game plan in case something happens. But if you've got this and you've got that type of mindset, and you're going to get kicked between the legs a couple of times, you can be very successful. But I want to talk about something else. We talk a lot about being the authority. What does that mean to you and building a brand?
So I feel like people who sell on Amazon, it's historically, or at least in the last, since whenever I started, it's been a very, very focused world where people have been really focused on what is happening on Amazon in tactics that relate to Amazon. And then you compare that in a parallel to direct to consumer. And it's interesting that the people who live in the direct-to-consumer space live very different vocabularies, or even they think about very different things. So I think in the direct-to-consumer space, and even general marketing outside the Amazon space in general, the view is thinking of media as being three different types of, or traffic being three different types of sources. And they're your paid sources, they're your earned sources, and they're your owned sources. And I hear a little bit, or I listened to your podcast with Kelsey on Tuesday, and I think obviously social is earned. And I think people on the Amazon space tend to really focus on, and I would argue Amazon itself is a form of earned traffic for your brand. I think people on Amazon really focus on kind of that paid and the earned. But when it comes to being an authority, I've come to know somebody I think you know as well, Joe Reichsfeld.
Oh, sure.
Yep. Yeah, and especially on Clubhouse, especially over COVID, I've met a number of people who I wouldn't normally have met, and he's definitely one of the people who I'm really appreciative of. And he recommended a book called They Ask You Answer. And the idea is that when customers ask a question, obviously you answer, no matter how difficult it is, and no matter how uncomfortable it is. And the author of that book, which is really interesting, is that he came into a business, a pool installation company, in 2009 called River Pool and Spas. And 2009, of course, for those of us who are old enough, the last financial crisis, it was when the financial crisis hit. They almost went bankrupt, but he discovered this idea of creating content and answering people's questions. And he has a very structured approach to thinking through and answering questions, which is obviously, if it was just answering people's questions, it would be a very short book. But fast forward 10 years, they went from being a near bankrupt pool installer to having to being the highest traffic site, especially when it comes to just SEO for Google searches, for I believe it's in-ground fiberglass pools, and they're now a pool manufacturer. So they skyrocketed in growth, and that ability to have that internalized traffic, they went from paying for traffic to now having more traffic than they can actually handle. And
Wow.
that traffic is higher quality, so people buy more, and they view them as experts rather than as like salespeople. And I think that shift in mindset, and I think like the other thing too of, I think we've talked before about, well, what is a brand? And I think brand is that layer of trust. In being a finance guy, I think a lot of people have that nebulous, or people think of brands as being very nebulous and too fudgy. But I think you can really quantify it in the delta, or the difference between what somebody would ordinarily pay for a product, and because of that added layer of trust in you as an individual or a person, to pay more because they believe that what you're saying will actually come true in terms of the value you're delivering.
Yeah, and you can see that all around. The time, the culture, everything. Excuse me again, but building that brand, if you can do it, and you can do it successfully, either through content or whatever means it takes, the ability for that perceived value to be there. And somebody's selling a knife. We talk about that a lot. A $49 knife, and another person is selling it for $224. Same knife, and it's just because of the packaging and the brand. That's incredible. Also, we talk, and I love talking about content when we launch websites. It could be about anything, but I think the most important thing on a website, other than having a really nice, well-designed website, it doesn't have to be that expensive, but it's the content and the consistency of the content. So in my eyes, I always see a brand having to go from Amazon, somebody's going to click off, go to Google, and you have to have that authority. And to build the authority, you have to build that trust. And that trust will then equal sales, because they're either going to go back to Amazon or back to your website. So anyways, and by the way, for any of you who are on Clubhouse, follow Clement. He is incredible. I started, we never had a chance to talk pre-Clubhouse, and I got to listen to you more and more and more, and you blew me away with your insight and just your presence. So if you are on Clubhouse, do yourself a favor, follow Clement. And I don't do this. You don't hear me telling people to go out and follow somebody, and make sure you ring that bell, because you want the notifications when he's on. So anyways, I had to say that.
Thank you. I'm really appreciative.
No problem at all. Okay, so what are some of the steps now? You've got this content, and I want to know the form of content. What are you talking about?
I think when it comes to going through this program with Joe, and it's been very enlightening as well, because he's been very generous in how he also shares his information. And I think that's the thing about Clubhouse. It's been, I think, for a lot of us, especially during COVID, we've been stuck in a world where we've been stuck. And being able to reach out to people who we would normally meet has been amazing in many respects. But I think when it comes to content, some of the examples that come to mind is just coming with, and what I think really separates them and a lot of other sites that talk about SEO is it is truly a culture shift. It's that and I'm sure many of us have had debates ad nauseum about things like capitalism and whether or not it's good or bad, or markets are good or bad, because people are focused on too much on profitability. And I think similarly, when it comes to SEO, the challenge is your information about trying to sell, or is it really trying to educate? And I think the one thing about search engines over time is they try to devalue the tactics of the simple workarounds to which result in, like, for lack of a better word, crappy content, and they focus a lot more on, well, what's that difference between the signal and the noise of, like, how can we extract out all the fluff of writing, which is terrible, and identify people who are actually finding value. And I think one of the signals, as Joe has pointed out, is the idea that people actually stay on your site and read. And I think that's one of the best metrics. And one thing that really, because people obviously talk a lot about backlinks and backlink profiles, and I think that's still important, because if nobody finds your stuff to begin with, then there's nobody to read. But when it comes to actually learning and reading and having time on site, that I think is playing an increasingly large factor on search engines as well. And so I think and then there are the uncomfortable questions of answering from a framework in kind of a student/teacher approach. It's not, you need a certain humility, but at the same time, I think people can tell when they're being approached with a used car salesman, or what we see as a used car salesman type approach, versus I want you to succeed in your journey. This is like, our brand is about trying to support you in your journey rather than trying to sell you stuff. Obviously, we think our stuff is great because that's we're building a business around this, and we believe that there's value in that. But there are alternatives, and in fact, they ask you answer. They talk about things like, okay, well, maybe you can also talk about your competitors. You can even rank them and say, like, if you don't buy our product, these are the other 3 or 4 products you might want to consider. And what their view is, and we haven't tested this, to be candid, because that's on the risk side, but what their view is, like, it builds trust on both sides. So when people go to check out these other products, they think, oh, well, maybe I should check out yours as well. And I think but I think that general overall view of, like, instead of just trying to push people down to the sale and trying to support them on their journey, I think that is becoming an increasingly large part of the brand journey, and what really creates the trust. If people actually believe that you care about who they are and the value you're trying to offer, I think that that helps build that trust.
Right. One of the one of the things that we tried to do, and we try to show people, is if you are going to go out there, and let's say you build the trust and you want to show what type of culture that you have, and you might be donating something, don't make it about you. If you're going to be putting that insert in saying that you're donating 10% of your profits, or you're donating X, I see so many people making the mistake, just like you said. It's people look through it. They look and read in between the lines. They don't want to support this or support that. They're doing it all about them. You go to the landing page and it's all about their company. It's not about the charity. If you're going to support a charity or give, proceeds back to them, make it about them. Don't even put a logo on the page. Bring it right back to their website. So these are all little things. Exactly what you're saying. Another thing, Neil Patel talks about it. If you're going to write something, make sure it's better than anything else on the page. because that's what people are going to go to. That's what they're going to strive, and that's what they want to see. If you're going to hire somebody for $2 an hour with all sorts of grammatical mistakes, don't expect anything. So
yeah, and to that point, I think like that's the difference between before Clubhouse, and I guess in the last few years, I've had kind of dim view of SEO, or much dimmer view, because yeah, like all of us have done search on Google and all these places, and we find crap that kind of gets to the top. But one of the heartening things I started, they're kind of, I hate cardio, and this is going somewhere, but I hate cardio. I found that listening to podcasts while doing cardio makes both of them tolerable. And so been listening to a ton of podcasts in the area of, especially around authority and expert content, and also exploring some of the talking to others in the field, and we're and seeing how they've been able to build expertise. And the one thing that is very consistent in all of this is that great value is something that all the search engines and all the, including Amazon, are trying to evaluate and understand and put in front of their buyers. And so over time, you hear about how terrible some of these Google corrections are. But if you look hard, you find people who actually benefit from some of these algorithm changes. And it's consistently across the board, it's people who create great content in terms of things that people want to read, and not just to hit the specific keywords. And in the same way, on Amazon, it's the first thing you need to start out with is a great product. And I think you can't put lipstick on a pig. And especially on more transparent markets like that, eventually it'll catch up.
Right. I just saw a comment from Tony, and he was talking about Patrick Stokes was saying that recent time on site is not as important. And yeah, that was a surprise to me, because I always thought that was important. But the thing we're talking about, Tony, is having incredible content. So if you have incredible content, people are going to come to the page. The time they spend on the page probably depends on the quality of the blog. They'll just click off the blog article very quickly if it's terrible. One thing I forgot, though, just like every podcast, we do have a giveaway today. The giveaway, Kelsey's probably on it. We're going to give away two things. The first thing will be the Wheel of Kelsey giveaway, and that's going to be a press release. Anybody who wants a press release written, you provide the press release, and we'll put it through our premium network. And I say we because I own a press release company. So just let us know the press release. We'll make sure that it's written properly for you, so you get the biggest bang for your buck. And that's hashtag Wheel of Kelsey. If you want to be entered twice, it's tag two people either here or outside of the chat. The second one, and I don't know what this is. Hashtag Mug Club.
Mug Club. That's
okay.
What I came up with. It's
going to be the Lunch with Nora mug, and we'll send that out to you. That'll be the second drawing. So an official. What are you going to say, Kels?
I'm just going to clarify. It is U.S., Canada only. So sorry to our international crew.
Go.
Yes.
Go.
All right. I'm leaving. I'm leaving.
There. All right. Yes. U.S., Canada only. All right. So let's get back on. I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew the giveaways today. So hashtag Wheel of Kelsey and Mug Club. Okay. What are your thoughts on people selling only on Amazon?
I think it's as much, well, I don't actually have an issue with that. And in fact, I think there's a good argument. We've seen in recent, we'll say 2 months, we've seen two massive exits in the pet supplement space. Obviously, the one with Zesty Paws and just prior to that, Pet Honesty. And I think that both of them were fantastic executioners of delivering what Amazon wanted, and especially in the case of Zesty Paws, which had longer, I think they dialed in their brand very well. Their imaging and everything is spot on, but they also grew off of Amazon and added a lot of other markets fairly quickly. So I think growing on Amazon is a great way to build that initial audience and to acquire customers. But I think that's the key. If you're just growing for the sake of growth on Amazon, if your goal is solely to be on, if you see yourself as an Amazon brand, I think that's kind of like skipping leg day at the gym. And the reason being is that you're at the mercy of the algorithm on Amazon, and things change, and things can change really quickly. Within the skincare space, the people who were at the top of the chain a few years ago are not, and it's the market shifts, especially in it's getting more competitive, and it's if you don't have any other assets, again, going back to that model of like acquired, earned, and owned traffic, or rather, owned traffic, which includes your email, which includes first-party data, then you're really at risk. But if you have those things and you're selling on Amazon and you're using your traffic to leverage scale, then it's tough to argue with some of the valuations that some people have gotten. In both cases, they expanded in the last year off of Amazon, and I think it's important. I think the strategic acquirers want to see that is viable, but being discovered on Amazon, growing on Amazon, it's tough to beat those kinds of results.
Right. Yeah. A couple of years ago, if you were talking to anybody about purchasing an Amazon business, they were purchasing an Amazon business. They weren't necessarily purchasing that brand. You mentioned about the people that were on the top of the food chain are no longer there, or some might be, but others have fallen. Is that just because they haven't kept up with the times or have not built up their brand?
Yeah, I think it's a combination. Some of them haven't kept up. Some of them have been acquired. It's always been the case where we generally celebrate when one of our tough competitors gets acquired, because we know that the people who come next often don't understand. And I think Liran Hirschkorn posted an article possibly yesterday about how Thrasio was seeing that with a lot of their competitors, of coming into the market and discovering, I think, what they call the dark arts of Amazon, and encountering them in terms of counterfeiters, in terms of bad competitors. It's not in losing momentum, and that's one of our issues. For instance, we substantially underestimated the risks of our supply chain, and we lost a ton of momentum in a little after our first year of the acquisition, and that was and some of it we haven't regained. But for especially some of our products, and the challenge is just understanding. For instance, even within Amazon, we can see both of us have been in the market long enough from the giveaways, and how those are done and communicated, and how reviews are obtained from people has changed dramatically from being to being far more, I would say, honest, if that's a if
Mhm.
that's a good word for it, but or at least transparent in terms of um, the the challenge of before it used to be cheap enough to buy. Now to do things like build a culture of sharing within your community um, is not. It's a difficult transition for some, but it's doable because clearly some people do make the transition and survive,
Mhm.
but you still look at some of these listings and uh, they lack in a lot of cases they lack, for lack of a better word, soul of like um, it doesn't feel like there's anybody behind those listings. It feels very corporate because
Mhm.
that's what some people think is important to consumers, but they don't realize how to build that trust and that familiarity with with customers. And I realize now that I've completely forgotten what your original question was.
Me too. But okay, look, let's talk about the steps. I'm going to back into a corner here, but can you give us some action steps or something that you can give to? There's a lot of beginners. They've just learned, came off of a course, but there's also some really incredible sellers on here. It's the full spectrum. So, what are some action points, or what can people do to build their brand? Just some simple steps.
I think one of, and this goes all the way back to basics of
Mm-hmm.
like, who are you talking to? And when you look at your listings and in something that Joe is very strong on is the idea of personas. And I think like even Ryan Levesque, it's similar of like, well, can you define in very clear terms? And I recognize that there's also this idea of whether or not personas are great or not.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think the exercise of thinking through, well, what are the challenges that a specific person is having? Because we try to talk too much. We try too much in brands and businesses to talk at people, and we think of it talking at a massive audience versus at somebody specific, of having that dialogue, of having that that personal connection. And I think in dialing that in, you kind of draw in other people. And I think that's where that's one of the challenges, or that's one of the issues I see on a lot of listings is well, do I what effectively there's no difference in messaging. It's all kind of when, especially with a lot of private label, you have a lot of the same products. Literally, some of them are the same over and
Mm-hmm.
over again, with the exception of the brand name. So um, then what's the differentiating factor? And I think it comes down to, well, which one feels? How does that make how does that communication feel? And I think that's the feeling aspect of the communication is one that's going to be uh, important to come across in a lot of content. And that actually is probably more the differentiator in many cases than even sometimes the quality of like the images themselves, because it's when we um, I can't remember the exact quote, but there's a quote, something to the fact that we may not remember what somebody says, but we remember how they make you feel. And I think when we think of brands as in that person, like in creating both the how it communicates with its audience, but also how its audience sees it as like that peer, and creating those elements to that's really where the value can be built in that personalization, which unfortunately doesn't is one of the things, especially for micro brands, they can have a huge advantage over the large corporates. And the funny thing is, a lot of micro brands think they have to behave more corporate.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Just to talk a bit more about the personas, we had Rand Fishkin. He was the founder of Moz on, and he now has something called sparktoro.com. I think it's .com or .io, Kels. I'm not sure. But if you could post that, got nothing to do with the company, but it's an incredible app to just take a look at your competition, take a look at who's following them, see who their influencers are, and you can just very quickly find your audience. So take a look at it. It's very inexpensive. We use it. And one of the things that I think there's an 8-minute video. Once you watch that 8-minute video, you're ready to go. Very inexpensive. Check it out. I'm not pushing it. I'm not an affiliate for it, but it is an awesome program to help you understand your audience. And it is so important. You can have the same product. We could talk about soap. I have soap for people who I have soap targeted specifically for Japan. I have soap for mudders who like to run in the mud for some reason. I have soap for different types of people, and I understand the demographic, and I can target that. But let's talk about one other thing: mistakes. What type of mistakes do people make when they are building a brand?
I feel like I've made a ton of mistakes, but when it comes to brand building, it's specifically with brand building, I do think that that lack of the belief that you have to be a lot more corporate is probably the biggest.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Mistake. And I also feel like figuring out, and one of the challenges, obviously, as an owner, you can't do everything well, but sometimes you can forget about some of the execution, especially like logistics, supply chain. Especially in these coming months, I feel like it's going to be a huge differentiator, unfortunately, for a lot of people, especially on Amazon. And so, but when it comes to building brands, I do think it's the issue of lack of personality and lack of personalization, and that's all related to being to a perception that one should be more corporate.
Yeah, one of the other things, well, there's a couple of things that I'm looking at, and one is going cheap. If you think that you can go to Fiverr, spend $5 to $25 to get somebody, first of all, to build that logo or your tagline, who have no idea about corporate identity and where you want to go and what you want to do, that's one thing. So yeah, I think that's very important. The other thing is when you're at that period of time, it doesn't have to be right off the bat, but it could be when, usually when I'm starting something, I'm thinking exit backwards. But if you get to that point and you're saying, all right, the brand's going well, I'm doing X number of dollars, I want to take this thing to the next level. Well, hiring a person to bring that out in your team, or to have a strategic meeting and take a day and figure out where you want to go. There's an excellent consultant that we've had on, Jeff Sass, and he talks about building the brand story out and really delivering it. So if that aggregator comes over, or whoever comes over, you've got it. You know exactly who you are, what you're going to do, how you're building the culture of your team, and how people are going to see you. And I think people miss that step. A lot of people miss that step.
Yeah, and to your point, I think when you talk about the exit and things that kind of can kill that brand value, and the idea of, well, what is a brand, and how does that translate to financially? And I think especially smaller brands, as you're starting out, it's not recognizing the level of visual consistency across what you do. I think you can do 99 designs if you've got a very clear point of view of what is a good brand, or what is good imagery, or what looks good. But I think like the difficulty is a lot of people don't realize what the difference between good and bad design. And I think that there is it's both an art and a science, and some people completely assume that it's hocus pocus, and come up with really terrible executions. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's very, I feel like a lot of us know what good brands look like, and we know it when we see it, but it's things like, oh well, issues around spacing, symmetry, simplicity, cleanliness, and when you start to really break it down, many of us haven't even thought about a lot of these things, which is why it's oftentimes cheaper in many respects to just have it done well the first time around.
Right. Okay, so before we get to the comments and the questions, I just want to remind everybody that if you do want to have a press release to be entered for the giveaway, just hashtag Wheel of Kelsey for our mug. It would be Mug Club. All right, so Kels, let's talk about some questions here.
So we have a couple here. The first one is from Jessica. What's your recommendation for meshing your website? Hopefully great credibility with Amazon and other e-commerce sites in light of listing limits and restrictions, so e-commerce shoppers know you.
What is your recommendation? Meshing with hopefully great credibility with. So I guess like the most common thing, like from zero to actually having a website, I'm sure you've talked about this, is probably WordPress. But the challenge is, with respect to listing limits and restrictions. I guess like in terms of what you can put on, and I think like the idea of meshing, I'm not. I'll just answer the question the way I think it's asked. But how does one relate your website to Amazon? And I think the way to think of this is like the idea of top, middle, bottom of funnel type process, where Amazon is towards the bottom of the funnel. People come to Amazon knowing that they're probably going to buy something, and so your site is more better spent. Time is better spent trying to educate people about what makes your product specifically unique, and answering their questions at the different varying points of that funnel, and also having adding those personalization points of like, is there a real person behind this business? I think that there's both a risk and opportunity in being that spokesperson for your brand, because when you sell it, obviously, if it's tied to any one individual, it can become an issue of how that imaging is used in the future. And so I think but at the same time, people want to believe that there's like, yeah, there are actual people working behind this. Is not like robots, or why should I care? And that really is the earlier parts of the funnel of like establishing why people should care is I think something that both the website and social can do a much better job of than even Amazon in many respects, because people are just there to quickly look and then in some cases make a fat snap decision, and may oftentimes miss things like your brand video or things like that.
And another part of building the brand is customer service. So and that's a big part of it. So if part of your brand culture is giving exceptional customer service, then make sure you provide it. If somebody comes over to your website and you can convert people. So if they're coming from Amazon doing all this searching and they're coming over to your site, there are different ways. I'll get to this in a sec. But if they go and they want to talk to somebody and they hit your chat bot, first, if they have to find it. Then you have the hamburger, those 3 lines that come up, and they are asking a specific question, and all they keep getting is this loop. You're going to have a frustrated customer. Or if you've got just an online chat and nobody ever gets back to anybody, you're going to have a frustrated customer. So if somebody's trying to communicate with you, or if you have a website, it doesn't have to be expensive, but make sure that there are options for people to communicate. You can put your email up at the top. I know when we're building websites, we try to have a contact page, and we also have at least 3 times scrolling down the page how to contact us. And we'll either have the online chat, or we'll have a chat bot that'll come up, and it'll make sure that people know that if you want to talk to somebody real time, click here, if that's part of it, or if it's just to leave a message. You have to deliver on that if that's part of your brand. And what you can find from this is now you're getting more influencer brand ambassadors, loyalty building. And if you have other product outside of Amazon and you start to target that, first of all, you're delivering that, you're building an email campaign, you can get them to buy products that are only sold on your website, and you're driving traffic away from Amazon. And you guys, so when you go to a site, I don't know if you've done this, but supplements is the best for this. You're increasing your average order value. You come in, you're buying 1 bottle. Well, how would you like to get 3 bottles? Or how would you like to have a monthly subscription? And your upsell, downsell, cross sell. You can't do that. You can't really do that on Amazon. So if you can get somebody over to your site and they become loyal and you're giving them tons of customer service, why would they go back to Amazon?
Well, and to your point of like that, the contact is actually really, really important, because I seem to recall there was conversion studies on your own website, independent of Amazon, is that if you have a phone number, especially like a 1-800 number or what have you, that can be a significant conversion factor.
Mm-hmm.
People just knowing, and nobody calls.
Nobody calls.
Yeah, but having that security, knowing that you can, if that becomes an issue, is helpful.
Yeah, even like for us, we will put an address. So we have an address. It's not shown on the front page, but it's a contact page, and they'll see the address. The phone number is right beside the email. So email top, right beside the main navigation bar, so people know that they can contact us, and it just gives that we're building up that trust. And once you have that trust, the likelihood of a sale, it becomes a lot easier. All right, Mr. Kels, next question.
Okay, and just a reminder, if you are interested in one of our official Lunch with Norm mugs, you just have to do #MugClub into the comment section, and that's available for US, Canada only, as well as a free press release for #Wheel of Kelsey. Okay.
You better let Shane know that I did that too, by the way.
I will. But just to follow up, so Rosalind just says, apologies for confusion in question. So convey on Amazon a real person behind the product. Is that the idea?
I think that's important. I think that, or it's at least in the very minimum helpful, that there is, and I recognize that some people aren't as comfortable with this, but it's that whole idea of like, if you're selling something that's near the same as somebody else, what are the things that can give you that edge? And that having a person is the easiest way to probably infuse soul into a listing. I'm assuming you could create a persona. I'm assuming you could create a character to do these things too, but it's how do you infuse And again, soul is one of those things which is like, how do you even define that? But it's that personality. How do you create personality? Well, easiest way is to have a person.
Grow a beard.
Yes, that is not an option for me.
All right. Our next question from Dr. Cause.
Oh, good to see
Clement,
Dr.
what do you-
Cos back.
Yeah, great to see you, Dr. Cause. Hey, Clement, what are your favorite top 3 strategies in building brand authority on Amazon and on Google? You don't have to do 3 if you only have 1 or 2.
I can't say that I have as much experience on Google, and that's something that we're exploring now actively. And but as far as what the things we're implementing is this idea of they ask you answer, and trying to be very detailed about things like, well, why is your product priced higher than somebody else? And customers are always asking that question, but how often are brands actually explaining why? And I think a lot of times people just pretend as if if you ignore the question, it'll go away. But I think the ones who are open and transparent about both how they build their brand and who they are as individuals are the ones who do build that trust and effectively build that brand authority. Obviously, on Amazon, you're limited a lot more in kind of the things that you can do, but obviously Amazon is increasingly trying to provide a platform for brands. We know that they've lost a number of higher profile brands off their Amazon in recent years, where they've tried to work with some companies who have just outright taken all their product off. And so, but at the same time, their tools of having brand registry, those are the, I guess what they call table stakes, in terms of you need to have those things in order to be able to have things like A+ content, to evaluate. One of the measures of brand, at least on Amazon, that you have is, well, how does your brand name show up in the brand analytics search, and what level of search does it have? And that is a reasonably objective measure. Although obviously, if you're paying somebody based on that measure, they can game it by just advertising based on that. But when people search for your brand in an organic sense, it can be a very good measure of how much authority, or how much, well, I guess authority is an assumption past that, but at least how recognized it is and how much people want. But I think it ultimately does come down to that credibility of how do you express that, and I think that is in being out there answering questions and changing that culture of communication from being purely about sales to really trying to help a customer move towards along their journey and be a teacher, even though you may quite well be a student along the way.
Mm. All right, Kels.
Okay, and our final, it's more of a statement, but if there's anything you want to add on to this, I use 99 Designs for my logo, but I was very involved as the creative director. Cannot expect a designer to know your vision without your guidance. And I must say, Rosalind's logo, we've seen it before on another episode of with Michael Kurtz. It's a fantastic logo, but yeah.
Yeah, and I can tell you, at least in the case of, I don't know about AJ's brands, but in the case of Pet Honesty, it started out like a lot of really strong brands on Amazon started out as really cheap logos, and you can change it over time.
Mm-hmm.
But it obviously involves a lot of lot of pain in tracking all your packaging when that changes. But yeah, I'm of the view that one can be very, if you do have a strong point of view, 99 designs can work. Unfortunately, I feel like a lot of people feel their expertise is much better than the market ultimately does.
Right. Yeah, I agree. So everybody with an iPhone is a photographer.
And last question: do you like Amazon Live videos?
I'm going to say that I haven't seen anybody do well with that. And I know that there are a few people who like it's additive. And I'm sure you've had him on.
Carlos?
Yes. He's the one I think of whenever I think of live. But I know we haven't seen much traction or as much traction with that. I think I think Amazon really wants to make it happen only because they've seen the success of live video commerce in China specifically. But for now, at least, it isn't. At least in my mind, it isn't something that has been profitable yet.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people are using it properly. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you can use it, and that's going to take a bit of time, and there should be a lot more training on that. So I got to talk to Carlos.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, I think that's it, Kels. Is that right?
Okay, that's it.
Well, Clement, you have to sit back and watch the Wheel of Kelsey.
Definitely.
All right, here we go. Here's the Wheel of Kelsey.
It's time for the Wheel of Kelsey.
All right.
This is the Wheel of Kelsey. Thank you to everyone who entered today's wheel for the free press release. We have 2 draws today, so one will be in just a second. But for our first one, here we go. 3, 2, 1. All right, the winner.
Still waiting for
of
the
free
theme
press
song.
release. I know, we're working on it.
Okay.
Gerard.
All right.
All right. So Gerard, please email me at k@lunchwithnorm.com. You are on YouTube, so I cannot reach you. You have to reach me, or we'll never find each other. All right, and our next one for the coveted official Lunch with Norm Club or Lunch with Norm mug. Here we go. Just let me see if there's no. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Who is that?
Okay. Yajin.
All right. Very good.
All right, so congratulations. So again, email me k@lunchwithnorm.com. I'm going to just put that in the group chat right now. And yeah, congratulations, everyone.
All right. So, and by the way, I was talking with Kevin King the other day, and he was mentioning that he's got a handful of tickets left for $1 Billion Seller Summit in Austin, and that's coming up in a couple of weeks. If you're interested, check out BillionDollarSellerSummit.com, and in the page or the checkout, just type in Lunch with Norm. There's no affiliate. I don't get nothing. I'm going to be there, but if you put in Lunch with Norm, you'll have, I believe it's access to the recordings and stuff like that. Anyway, check it out. You do get an additional, I think it's for next year. I'll make sure that this is all straight. He just talked to me about it, and I'll get Kelsey to post it. But if you are planning on going to Austin, check it out. There's going to be a ton of great speakers. The average seller is over 3 million in sales. So I've been there almost every time. I was sick the one time I couldn't go, but it is a great event. Have you ever gone?
I've been to a couple of the events while it was happening. I do live in Austin normally, but I believe the last few times the dates did not work for me.
Ah, okay. So you were at the first one?
I went to one of the evening events, and then I wasn't able to attend during the day.
I'm gonna head to Austin a day or two early, and then leave a day or two afterwards after the event. But anyways, it was great having you on. We got to get to, like, we are literally a stone's throw away. So I can't wait till we can get together and break some bread. And that would be fantastic.
Agreed.
I really appreciate you coming on. Like I said, if you want to hear some really great content, follow Clement on Clubhouse, and you won't be disappointed. All right, sir. Well, we will see you hopefully soon, and hopefully we get you back on the podcast.
Thanks, Norm. Thanks, Kelsey.
You're very welcome.
Oh, just one last thing.
Yep.
Clement, I know, is there anything that we need to, for people to get a hold of you? I know Ryan Moran has a capital conference. Is there anything you want to share about that?
No, I'm not a part of that organization, but I do know that the capitalism or CapCon, which is happening in September. It's unfortunately the first one that I'll miss, just because I'm stuck here in Canada. But it is, as usual, it'll probably be a great conference just based on the speakers. And as always in Austin, I don't know, when is $1 Billion Summit again?
16th to the 20th.
Yeah, it might actually be close to then if you want to
have to check it out
yourselves, because I don't remember the actual dates. Like, I've been too much in okay, this just sucks being here, but so I haven't looked at the specific dates because I know it's unlikely that I'll make it back by then. Literally there will be a few billionaires definitively, and it will be some really good brand builders.
Fantastic. Okay, I got to check that out after the podcast. I'll see. I would like to attend if I can. But anyways, thank you, Clement, and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks. Have a good one.
All right, you too. Okay, Kels.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening for today's episode. Also, I hope everyone has a great Labor Day weekend if you are celebrating that in your country.
Yeah, it's coming up.
Yeah. I actually have Blue Angels, the jets, flying above my house right now, and I can hear another one coming. So I hope my app is working where it cuts out the background noise. But yes, if you missed today's episode, go on over to our YouTube channel, Norman Farrar, and you'll be able to find all the information or all the episodes and our daily highlights as well. And if you're new to the community, just head on over to our Facebook group, Lunch with Norm, Amazon FBA, and eCommerce Collective. And we are doing a really great little Beer Nation appreciation episode for our 200th. We did this before, I think.
That was really good.
Yeah, it was great. We got to meet Marcia, Simon, Raja, Dr. Kaz, Mark, so many Beer Nation members. So we're going to do that again. So go over to our group. We have all the information there. Or if you're not a part of that, just send me an email and let me know why you want to be on the show, and we'll enter you into the draw. So that's happening at the end of September. And yeah, we'll talk about that more later on. But
okay. So before I forget, I just wanted to thank our sponsor, Hrefs. We talk about it all the time. We talked about it today about building your brand and making sure that you have an e-commerce website. I mean, it really is critical for your micro brand to grow. But we're all Amazon sellers. It's hard for us to find time and worry about a website, you know? So how do you do this? And how do you get your scores up and your ranking up? Well, Ahrefs here to help. You can monitor, or Ahrefs monitors your SEO health, backlinks, keywords, and it's free. There's absolutely no charge, and that's called Ahrefs Webmaster Tools. So you can sit back, you can relax, enjoy your coffee, enjoy the show while Ahrefs does it all. Sign up for nothing, zero at ahrefs.com/AWT. That's ahrefs.com/AWT. All right, everybody. So thank you for joining us today. It was really a pleasure having Clement on. Hopefully you learned something. We have this podcast every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, Eastern Standard Time. Thank you for being part. Thank you for being part of the community, and enjoy your weekend.
Lunch with the